Segon. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the North Country Rights of Nature Symposium. We pass the word to Dave Arquette, who will be giving the opening address in Mohawk. Dave, the word is yours.
Sego, everybody. It's an honor to be able to do this for you today in this setting. First, I'll do it in Mohawk, in my language, and then I'll do a brief explanation in English. You can still hold your cacat go hug it on the Haudenosaunee scanner or the way the Nusaka Tono Tunis one the Gullah. A great Oscar no Mama Nooney Guanagola down there to others there. Cantusla, cheat second, get Yahweh's neck, I could eat the wax none, there were two kayaks at Tono Tunis one the Gullah. A great Oscar no Mama Nooney Guanagola down there to others there, Kahi Sun Antono Negua Takuakuan or Gotne Desson Hosa Northern at Tono Tunis one the Gullah. A great Oscar no Mama Nooney Guanagola down there to others there. On that soon, G seg on Yunkia the Gohas no Oga get Kakwatana Oga get or Nunga the what's the Tono Tones one the Gullah. The Telatas ne onega so G seg on one those Jungo Hunter one. The most of Dano Oskalage when they were Hetkaskan on Jagger. Askat G on the Mama Nooney Guanagola down the Telatas ne onega so Tono Tones one the Gullah. A great Oscar no Mama Nooney Guanagola down the Telatas ne got your son ne waha ne guide the gasla ne dosa they were doing they were doing kayaga not God is gonna go other was that on the Telatas ne got your son a ton of dollars one gonna the Telatas ne I know got so a G sego you can't go as no and you're going to walk to Askat G on the Mama Nooney going to go down the Telatas ne I know got so a ton of dollars one gonna the Teladas ne contilio G sego you can't go as no they were doing gangster no they were vistos Askat G on the Mama Nooney going to go down the Teladas ne contilio a ton of dollars one gonna a great Oscar no Mama Nooney going to go down the Teladas ne Okulet soon G sego and he had there on the whole do so can ya his son some guatiso a ton of dollars one gonna the Teladas ne Ojito go G sego you got told the Galanios like the Howie done on Aquas Takuakuano Aguas ne Hosono the Ona Gauti Sakula now Honor the Nescana Gayonta Gachi Honja de Tono Tonis one go. A great Oscar no Mama Nooney Guanagola down the Teladas ne Gaeli. Kaeli Negalewaga G Sega and at the hell on the Hodo Saganya Hassan and Sanguatiso at Tono Tones Wanagona. The Telatas na Yukiso the go Patiwalas Atenaka How is net Sego to Neos Yalahaga on the Hodo Saganya Hassan and Sanguatiso at Tono Tones Wanagona. The Telatas ne de Wakatos Necalaco, the house were tato than a latter heart of Gota Honjaga, Casastasla only de Sanqua, Greg Oscar Mama and Nooney Guanagola down de Teladas and Sanquagia Gakana Claco, Tono Tonis one the Gola. Neji Nonji de Wile Asca, G on the Mama and Nooney Guanagola down de Teladas, Asatanasa. Yet Tigas get good luggage na Yunki Sota Sotanaka Galaqua. Tono Tonis one Gola. A great Oscar no Mama Nooney Guanagola down the Teladas na Ostisto Quason na Lona Tololi na Yugua Sosla na Lona Miosta Ono Yasta Tata Junior Nuga has a Tono Tonis one Gola. A great Oscar no Mama Nooney Guanagola down the Teladas na Gaeli. Neon Greta ne wahe ne Lona de Honda Yunkianto Nona ne Ongreso Atono Tonis one Gola. Agrego Ascana Mama Nuni Guanigula Dano Galinio Santa was the Dutchit Relatos Nesumbatis on Neo Youngest and so called Tono Donis one to go. One I had to wear near house of deliver her do. Don't go to the hold of water when after Yaki, then go on the go on in a dog on the hold dogs and going to go home. Or the Wayachne on this what Gano what those were Tono Donis one to go. Now, whenever we have a gathering such as this, our Creator has instructed us to always do the Hondo Gulliwadeko, the words that come before else. He says, whenever we gather such as this, we're supposed to give our thanks and greetings and appreciation to all those things that sustains life here on earth. And he said, if we do this, we give our thanks and appreciation, we won't take advantage of them or they won't feel appreciated. And then they'll leave Mother Earth here and then return to the sky world and we'll never see them again. And so how we do this is we start out with all the things that we see on the ground and then we move our way up to the things we see in the sky. So first we started with the people. We give our thanks appreciation for coming here today, and and that we're healthy and that we continue to live in peace and harmony in our environment the way our Creator has instructed it to us. And then next we give our thanks and appreciation and to our Mother Earth who takes care of us, and we are her children. She takes care of us like we're her children, and we would not be able to survive without her. And then we give our thanks and appreciation to all those things that nourish us and keeps us healthy, like the food plants in our gardens and the berries and the plants and the fish in the waters and the animals that roam on earth that give us nourishment and provide us clothing when the weather gets cold. And then we give our thanks appreciation to the trees for all they do for us. You know, they give us shade when it's hot and they provide us materials to build our homes. And then we give our thanks to the waters for all that they do for us. They're there. They're always here to quench our thirst whenever we need it. And then and always provide water provide for our plants in the gardens to make them grow. And then once we've given thanks and appreciation to all we see here on earth, then we move up to the sky world. We give our thanks and appreciation to the winds for all that they do, provide us fresh air to breathe. And then we give our thanks and appreciation to the grandfather thunderers for bringing the rain and replenishing the waters here on earth and washing away those things that are harmful to us. And then next, we give our thanks and appreciation and thanks and gratitude to our elder brother, the sun, who gives us warmth and makes us feel at peace as we roam about here on earth. And then we give our thanks to the bird life, you know, all that they do for us, provide us nourishment and the songs that he has given them to give us a peace of mind here as we roam about here on earth. And then we give our thanks and appreciation to our grandmother, the moon, for we see the different faces she has for us at night that determines what months we are and what season we are in. And then next we give our thanks appreciation to the stars who enlighten the sky and bring us the morning dew when our plants are thirsty. And whenever we are lost, you know, we are to look at them and they provide us, you know, they will guide us back to where we want to go. And then we give our thanks and appreciation to to the four messengers. Whenever the people have gone off the path that he has intended us to be on, he sends certain messengers to bring us back on that path. And then last but not least, we give our thanks and appreciation to our Creator, who has given us everything we need here to sustain life here on earth. And that whenever we speak of him, we use the kindest and gentlest words that we can find whenever we speak of him. And then at the end, we say, if there's anything that I have forgotten and that you feel is important, it's up to you to give thanks, your own thanks and appreciation in your own minds. And so that's what I've been asked to do here for you today. So next, I'll turn it back over to the host. Yama.
Nyawa. Thank you, Deverquet, for opening the North Country Rights of Nature Symposium. To begin, us, as organizers, would like to acknowledge that we are acting from the territory of the Haudenosaunee people, specifically the Kanien'kehá:ka Mohawk. In addition, we acknowledge our role as settlers on this territory, honoring those who have stewarded this land since time immemorial. And now, my name is Blake Levia, and I use they or all pronouns.
And my name is Sinsun Aguilar-Izzo, and I use they, them pronouns.
And we welcome all of you to this conversation in which we discuss the fate of the rivers of the North Country, Haudenosaunee Territory. We are joined today by panelists from across the region and the world to guide us through these complex topics. This conversation will be moderated by the Voice of Rivers Committee, a group of students and community members who have joined forces to create the questions and guide this conversation. To join the discussion, we invite you to use the Q&A function located at the bottom of your screen. We will be compiling your question throughout the event, and we will ask as many as possible to the panelists at the end of the event. You're also more than invited to turn on the live caption function, which is also located at the bottom of your screen. And as you may have noticed, we have two amazing interpreters with us, Sarah Collins and Naomi Miller, and we thank them for joining us in this adventure. And finally, this program was founded in part by Humanities New York with support from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program do not necessarily represent those of National Endowment for the Humanities. And now, I will pass the word on to Sinsun.
So, the topic of the day, what are the rights of nature? Well, let's start at the roots. Concepts involving rights of nature have been the bedrock of indigenous customary law since time immemorial. Contemporary nations are finally coming up to speed. In the current political arena, rights of nature are the recognition by legislation or jurisprudence of legally enforceable rights of ecosystems and species. This means recognizing civil rights type protection for the non-human world. This idea has been kicking around in colonial Western law since the 1970s, but it came to the forefront in 2006 when the township of Tamaqua Borough, Pennsylvania, adopted an ordinance recognizing the rights of ecosystems to exist, flourish, and naturally evolve. Since then, rights of nature has spread around the world, from the country of Ecuador, which has enshrined the rights of Mother Earth into its constitution, to Orange County, Florida, where the waterways have currently brought a developer to court for threatening to violate their legal right to exist. As we speak, the White Earth Band of Ojibwe is seeking to overturn a 5 billion gallon water permit issued by the state of Minnesota to Enbridge Corporation for the construction of the Line 3 tar sands oil pipeline. Who is the primary plaintiff in this case? Why? It is Manumi, or wild rice. Now, to discuss what would rights of nature look like in the North Country, it is essential that we all get a sense of the region's geography. To begin, we must remember that this is the land of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, specifically the Kanien'kehá:ka Mohawk. While a large part of the world is going dry, this land is brimming with water. Streams unite to form rivers, which flow from the Adirondack Mountains to their confluence with the St. Lawrence or Majestic River. The St. Lawrence carries the water from the Great Lakes, the home of 21% of the world's fresh drinking water, to the Atlantic Ocean. These waterways have suffered human exploitation for centuries. They've been used as logging highways, transporting corpses of old growth trees to paper mills and factories. They have been dammed, their current silenced by large hydroelectric projects. The hydroelectric power has then fueled the factories, which have in turn leached poisonous toxins into the land and water, poisoning both human and non-human communities. Currently, the rivers are also suffering from agricultural contaminants, and the manure from large industrial dairy operations inevitably finds its way into the waterways. And in the face of the climate crisis, this region is poised to see an influx of climate refugees, and the growing human population will inevitably put further strain on the entire watershed. So, considering this global and local reality, this event is an attempt to take a biocultural regional approach and bring together communities from across these watersheds to discuss how to best protect the land and water that is our home. All the panelists today united in the beautiful struggle to shift our worldview and treat nature not as merely a commodity, which can be exploited, bought, and sold, but as a relative, an intrinsic member of this global community. And now, without further ado, we are presenting you with our panelist, our amazing panelist. We are going to introduce them one at a time. Feel free to wave when we mention your name. The first person we are presenting to you is Wagilagatse, Louise McDonald-Herne, also known as Mama Bear. She is the Bear Clan mother for the Kanien'kehá:ka Mohawk Council of Chiefs. She is a pillar of her community, and she strives to guide the younger generations to honor and protect this land and water, the First Mother. Nikki Hylton-Patterson joins us from the Adirondack Mountains, Haudenosaunee Territory, where she is the director of the Adirondack Diversity Initiative. Nikki's work drops like a human cannonball into the pristine Adirondack Lakes, creating ripples of social and environmental justice that disrupt systems of structural oppression. Abraham Francis, Deer Clan, is the Environmental Service Program Manager for the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne. While serving the environmental needs of his community and nation, Abraham has inspired the entire region to create a restorative relationship with the rivers and the environments they sustain. Saka Yever is the Community Conservation Manager for the Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust, a collective that pulls the rug from under structures of colonial land ownership and supports Indigenous and BIPOC farmers. Saka is also an artist, an activist scholar who strives to steward a flowering and rebellious future. And last but not least, Monte Aguirre is the Latin American project coordinator for International Rivers, an organization that is on the front lines of struggles to protect the arteries and veins of this planet. Through her work, Monte is constantly advocating and fighting for the rights of rivers and their guardians. So without further ado, I will now turn the mic over to the Voice of Rivers Committee, the group of students and community members who have pulled together this conversation. Jenna Outland will be starting the discussion. Jenna, I pass the word on to you.
Hi, I'm Jenna Odlin. My pronouns are she, her. I go to Saranac Lake High School, and I'm calling from Lake Clear, Haudenosaunee Territory. My question is for everyone. How do you engage with someone who does not believe that something like nature or land should have rights? We have 7 minutes for this question, so it'd be great if you could keep your responses brief, so there's time for everyone to speak. We will start with Monte Aguirre.
Thank you very much. I'm Monte Aguirre. I'm part of my beloved organization, International Rivers. And first of all, I must take a minute to say how grateful I am for your invitation, and how grateful I am that I'm among so many young people and students, and the places that where you come from, and just seeing this that you've organized this event really gives me hope. You know, and I'm somebody older. I don't, for example, I'm not yet accustomed to, determine myself in the he, she pronoun, all that stuff. I'll learn about it. But what I want to say, it's so precious what you're doing. So thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this. And then, when you engage with somebody who does not believe that nature has rights and all that, I mean, let's think about this. And you really have to put your philosophical hat. You really have to look at epistemology. Let's look at hermeneutics and ontology. And this, by that, I mean, I know original peoples already have that, they're born many with that. Many people lose that sense due to the genocide of the episteme, and episteme meaning those units of knowledge, that knowledge, that it gets savaged in so many ways. So what do we have left? What we have then, let's go back, for example, to some of the words of Christopher Stone in his book, Should Trees Have Standing, which really was the first book in sort of this tradition, in this, in academia, right? That kind of became more notable, known in terms of asking this question. And then what he argues is that corporations, women, Black people, and children have been granted legal rights over the course of history. And then, therefore, nature's rights should be embraced as well. And why embrace? Why think about giving nature rights? And many original peoples, indigenous people, had said they didn't understand. They haven't they don't see why it needs to happen that way. And this is the reason, because what I see when people don't understand in many ways is because two things. One, because they're already so connected with nature that they don't see a difference. And then, in the other hand, we can have people that after, that separation between nature and humans started to happen, at least conceptually, which we got to go back to the 16th and 17th century, right? So asking that question, or in answering that question nowadays, after we human have changed so much, then we got to think about that we need to stop treating nature as an object or property, as merchandise, because if we start thinking that what is it that feeds it, and Dave was saying it, I mean, this question has been answered by Dave, really. But when he was saying, it's basically nature is what provides it with life, with food and everything, and we are nature and all that, then nature, but because the nature has been treated in this exploited and destroyed in the way that it has, then we need to think this way, to think through the court system, to think through the legal system, and then so it's a tool in that sense what we're doing, but it really has to do with how humans have changed and modified their perceptions and all that, because it is nature. Humans need nature. We are part of nature, and for food, shelter, water, health, for life, and well, maybe I should let somebody else answer the question too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pass the word to Nikki Hylton-Patterson.
Well, I'm coming from thank you for having me. I share Monty's appreciation of youth-informed and youth-led justice movements, as the environmental movement needs to be a people's movement, right? And so thinking through the rights of nature, I'm very, very new to this concept and this idea of the rights of nature. And so understanding, coming to this space from a Rastafarian background where we're supposed to be stewards with the land as opposed to stewards for the land, then begs the question, with the rights of nature, the framework says that there needs to be a steward that's assigned. And my challenge is, because we have been the environmental project is so colonized, then who gets to be the stewards? Then do we then look to the traditional stewards of the land, of the rivers, of the trees, and say, and take our guide and our precedents and our leadership from those voices? And also, are we centering voices from the margin, the poor, the Black, the brown, the queer, the other, the disenfranchised, those who are overburdened by the climate change and degradation, environmental degradation? These are the questions I have when it comes to rights of nature. So yeah, so I'm probably one of those who needs more convincing, or needs a greater understanding, then not convincing, but to have a greater understanding and more fluency in how the rights of nature can impact those who are on the margins, yeah, and who are overburdened by the impacts of climate change.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm going to move it on to Saka Yver.
Thank you, everyone. Again, gratitude to the organizers, gratitude to the moderators and the panelists, and all of the persons who are tuning in right now or will be watching this in a recording later. I have to be honest with you. If someone says that they don't believe that something like nature or land should have rights, I typically don't waste much time on the conversation, because I think there's a great deal of conversation that folks who do believe that nature or land should have rights, that there's a lot for us to do. So, you know, I have a very limited period of time on this earth, and whether people know it or not, Earth eats us all. And I think the conversation that I tend to bring to people starts with that Earth eats us all. When you are a being who is in relationship with an ecology and a cosmology, and that cosmology and ecology are one and the same, you know that you are forever interacting with your kin, you are forever interacting with ancestors, and you are forever interacting with persons who are about to emerge. You are actually interacting with yourself, a future version of yourself that you have yet to experience, because you've yet to have drunk from a particular lake, you have yet to have climbed a particular rock, you have yet to have inhaled a particular experience, whether it's smoke or food. I think that the challenge that I have most in engaging persons around the subject of rights, or nature and land having rights, is the issue with the term rights, which is a European settler construction that does not really reflect upon rights. RIGHTS is a European construction, which doesn't really reflect well upon an Indigenous perspective, in which we may discuss the right, or RITE, or rather the activity by which we make an improved relation, which ultimately leads to a correction in culture. Yeah, I don't really engage with folks who I don't have time for.
Thank you. We're getting pretty low on time here, but I want to pass the word to Mama Bear.
So I get this opportunity to, you know, the short amount of time to say a lot, but I don't think a lot has to be said. And we're always talking about, you know, how, humanity belongs in the world where, you know, we always got to create something. And when you talk about the rights of nature, it's odd to me because I got to ask myself, what right do we have to even question the mother? And so in Haudenosaunee philosophy and a worldview and living in a matriline, matrifocal society, the land is a lady and the lady is the land, and we're not separate from one another. And so without question, we revere her as the ultimate mother. And what right do we have to even question that she has a right? She has all the rights. It's what right do we have to impose our frivolous fancy on her and to, you know, intrude our arrogance and to come onto the land. So, you know, I'm not quite sure which question I have, but, you know, I don't know if I'm part of that first question or second question. I'm just so lost in this wonderful place that we are in with our young people. And, you know, rightfully so, as it is their generation that needs to own it, because it is them that have to raise children in it. And so, you know, the question for, you know, where we live in Akwesasne, we've been pummeled with all kinds of intrusion upon our environment. And again, what right did those big corporate industrial, you know, the industrialization of society, what right did they have to just put these mega plants near Indian reservation because we were expendable and we were brown people? So, you know, and then they, you know, put it near our freshwater lake that took away our right to fish, our right to garden, our life ways, affecting all of our reproduction and our economy, our farming, our fishing. They've been gone now for probably a good 20 years, but the impacts of the PCBs and everything else that they left behind is still being felt by the people that continue to live. We're brown and we're going to stick around because this is our mother. And, you know, we treat her a certain way. We think of her in a certain way. And, you know, we tread lightly upon her and we have the utmost respect. So with that, but I'm real honored to be here. You know, I'm like, holy cow, you know, there's some real smart young people here really putting this real good gathering together. You know, these are already leading the world. But, you know, I encourage you to not give up on us old people, because we kind of put you in this position and, you know, and you're going to lead us out of it. So with much gratitude, you know, I offer these words for tonight. Nyaweha.
Thank you. Finally, I'm going to pass the word to Abraham Francis.
I will try to make this brief. As you know, a previous presenter shared, I see rights really as like this colonial construct, and so I just kind of think about our culture and then how it's about relationships and having healthy relationships around us. And I'm sort of caught at the intersection of like, this is the world we live in, so using rights is one of the tools in our toolkit. And a really great mentor of mine told me that we have to use every tool in our toolkit to address these complex issues that we're confronting. So I'm kind of at the intersection of a lot of these arguments, but for me, it kind of just goes back to like understanding that the land and creation has its own agency, that we are in, as I've heard Mama Bear talk about, perpetual gratitude through our culture. And I just love that. And by being in relationship with the world around us, understanding our roles and responsibilities that are reciprocal and constantly in motion. And then just kind of going back to the part two, engaging with somebody that doesn't think the world around us has rights or has agency. I think it really depends on how much energy I have. I'm not going to sit here and try to convince somebody that is not going to entertain the conversation. I'm booked and I'm busy. And then sort of the other aspect of it is I try to connect with people. I try to connect with people through storytelling, through poetry, through music, through art. Let me relate this to something in your life, because I work in the sciences, and science is so bad at communicating itself. But when you connect with people, and this is the example I use all the time, and people are probably getting sick of it, but when I think about the protection of wetlands and the importance of it, I'm thinking about the medicine that my grandmother gifted me. And that for me, protecting the wetlands and being in a relationship is protecting her memory and keeping that medicine and her story alive through me, that I can pass on to my children, to my grandchildren. And in this way, being in this existence that transcends time and is part of this intergenerational knowledge transfer. It's this emotional piece of who I am and all of my relations. So that's what I have to offer regarding that question. Yawagoa, and thank you to all the organizers. Y'all are amazing.
Thank you all so much. I'm going to pass the word to Grace Romer.
Thank you, Jenna. Hello, everyone. My name is Grace Romer. My pronouns are she, her. I am calling from Potsdam, New York, rather the Haudenosaunee Territory. And the school that I'm a part of is SUNY Potsdam, and the organization that I'm representing is the Potsdam Environmental Club. So my question is addressed to Wagalagaste and Abraham Francis. And my question is, how have the waterways of Akwesasne community and the livelihood of the community been infected by industrialization? What has been done to remediate these challenges? I will let you both know that you have 3 minutes to answer this question, and we will hand it off to Wagalagaste, also known as Mama Bear.
That was also known as River de Iroquois prior to its new name, is a tributary into the Great Lakes. And, you know, the community of Akwesasne was well known to be a fishing community and a farming community. And with the industrializations of these super plants that came in of Reynolds, Aluminum, General Motors, and Alcoa, they poured all their toxic waste right into this great river, this freshwater lake, and it's greatly affected the fishing economy. I grew up seeing a bunch of, you know, fishermen all the time on the river, young boys, old men. You know, it was a truly fishing culture, and also my father himself was a trapper on the marshlands and hunted rabbit and muskrat and deer, and my mother was a gardener. But with these plants, it greatly took away that whole life way and removed from us our autonomy and our ability to feed ourselves and hunt ourselves. And we started to get industrialized here, and then our men started to go on iron work on high steel down in New York City, and then slowly but surely came in the influx of drugs from the city and other social ills like drinking, and you know, the abuse and the violence really spiked here, and then, you know, men had to find other sources for living, and they turned to the smuggling trade, and we have been greatly affected. And the women, I think, have been probably the biggest receiver of the impacts of the plant and the pollution here at Akwesasne in our riverways, which we consider are, you know, the blood of Mother Earth. That, you know, as a kid, I was told not to go swimming certain time of year because all the eels were floating along the river, because the big turbines at the big power dam was just annihilating that whole population of eels. And they were actually the bottom feeders, and they were actually the ones that clean up the river, and now they're all gone. So, you know, our ecosystem is under great stress. There's a huge imbalance going on. And, you know, even those plants like I said earlier, are long gone. The residual effects of it still, thyroid disease is here, diabetes, cancer. I grew up never hearing of cancer. Now it's a daily conversation. So, we're greatly impacted by, the pollution within our rivers. And, it's unfortunate that we get disconnected from our own human ways. But anyways, I just get lost in the bog of it all, and I'll hand it off to Abe because he's the professional.
Not very professional. No, I'm just joking. Thank you so much, Mama Bear. I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to engage hope in this story. I think one of the biggest damages that has ever been done to this river is our story was stolen from us. And this was stolen with purpose. It was stolen by environmental violence. It was stolen by development and the fixation of our people on reservations. And this story began a long time ago. Began in the 1750s when Aguilar-Izzo was established as a permanent settlement. And then we established our borders with some treaty in 1790, whatever. And this sort of perpetuates itself because then we had to become hyper agriculturalized here. And so we removed all of the trees from this area. And this fed into the potash industry. And so let's continue with this narrative of the industrialization of this area where the seaway development came. And so they were trying to dredge there. They didn't try, they accomplished it. They dredged the St. Lawrence so they could get access to the Great Lakes. And this for me really speaks to the voice of the river. So one of the interpretations of the name of Aguilar-Izzo is Land of the Partridge Drum. And in another iteration, the reason that it was called Aguilar-Izzo because that was the sound of the waves would make along the rapids in this area. So we used to have rapids here, but with the deepening of the channel, the putting of the dams and these different ways of controlling the water levels, the river lost its voice. But also in connection to that, what it invited in was industry with cheap energy and, access to those shipping opportunities. And then there was no regulations around the, introduction of PCBs and mercury and a variety of other environmental contaminants. And Aguilar-Izzo, what I think needs to be reminded is we never stopped resisting. We never stopped fighting. We kept showing up for the river at every single turn. It was Aguilar-Izzo that noticed the changes that were happening, the violence on our bodies and our community. And we advocated, we fought, and we established these areas of concern. And what came with those areas of concern are these 14 biological use impairments. I will not bore you with the details, but that's where my work is. As an environmental scientist and, a self-proclaimed Indigenous ecologist, I call in these different pieces of relationality into my analysis, into the ways that I approach the quantification of delisting biological use impairments, of understanding the implications of environmental contaminants, not only on ourselves, but on all of our relationships, on all of our culture, because this is all connected. This is all a part of that relationship that exists there. This contributed to domestic violence. This contributed to diabetes in our community, cancer. There are so many confounding factors in this. It's so hard to make any sense of it. But this is it. At the end of it, what I need people to understand is we are doing the work. We are reclaiming this. We are holding industry and governments accountable in this process. We are standing up. The river is improving. It's healing itself. But it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be threats on the horizon. So we got to stand and we got to be ready and we got to protect it. And so that's what we are doing. We are doing the research that needs to be done. We are showing up. We are showing out. I am, I think when I think about myself professionally, I'm a professional hater. And I will argue at any table. And the thing is, too, is that I am trained in the ivory tower, in the language, in the sciences, and in the research. And the tools that used to be used against us to keep our voices down, to confuse us, or that we weren't able to, I don't know. I'm not even getting fully into it. I can speak that language. I can see when they're playing games with us, or when they're trying to, or when somebody doesn't really understand what they're talking about. So I'm there, I'm present, I'm using theory, we're developing methods, we're doing analyses, we're providing results. And it's all in this accessible way for Akwesaslono. And it's all about for us, by us. And so that's what I live and work by. And that's where I am, inspired by my mama bear, inspired and uplifted by so many people from my community. And so that's what I wanted to share. Now go.
Thank you, Mama Bear and Abraham Francis. I'm now passing the mic to Amanda Barreto Salguero.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Barreto. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from Brazil, but I attend St. Lawrence University, and I'm speaking from Canton. I'm a global studies and environmental studies major. The question that I'm going to ask is directed to Nikki Hylton-Patterson, and the question is, how does and will climate change affect the future of the Adirondack communities? And what do we need to do to create an environmentally just and equitable future for all? We have 5 minutes to answer this question. There is time remaining. We will hear from the other members of the panel.
Awesome. I'm not sure I'm going to take up all 5 minutes. I'm not Abraham with his science embedded in ivory tower, right? I love you, Abraham. I can't wait to meet you in 3D, right? Awesome. So before we start talking about the impacts of climate change currently and in the future on the Adirondacks, the communities in the Adirondacks, let's look at the geopolitical landscape that is the Adirondacks, right? Because this is the Adirondack Park. The blue line is something that was created, right? So let's talk about that. So 6 million acres, 6 million plus acres, almost 3 times the size of Yellowstone. A mix of public and private lands. The biodiversity of the Adirondack Park is a result of its location as a transition zone between the temperate deciduous forests of the Appalachian Mountains and the boreal spruce fir forests of Canada. Now, what we also know is that it's the population is overwhelmingly white, rural, and a mix of multi-generational white Adirondackers, what you call transplants, those who have moved up here for a job, or temporary visitors, like those that are trapped in the carceral system in the Valley of the Prisons. That is what I call northern New York, our Valley of the Prisons. Yes, my dear. So these are the populations that we're working with, and then we neighbor our neighbors, the heirs and stewards to our planet, really. Yeah, our Akwesasne neighbors right there. So the data on climate change specific to the Adirondack Park: winter temperatures warmed 2.3 degrees since 1970. Annual snowfall at Lake Placid declined by 18% since 1948. And snowfall is more sporadic. Now, I've only been living in the park for 2.5 years, right? And I'm already seeing the impacts of climate change. Significant impact. There's been a significant impact on the freeze-thaw cycle, and it's estimated. Our client scientists estimate that it will get worse. Freezing occurs 10 days later than 1970. Spring thaws occur 9 days earlier. Winter operating season is shortened by almost 6 weeks. Now, this is already happening, right? So it's impacting cross-country skiing, and I'm speaking like a capitalist, right? So we're talking about the economy, the cultural, the economy of the people, right? And how climate change is going to impact it right here in Adirondack Park. Not enough ice for logging trucks, make work sites inaccessible, impact on hotel and the restaurant business from loss of tourist trade. Skiing, the worst skiing recorded in history in the Adirondack Park was in 2016. the insect pests expanding their range because of global warming, climate change, insects, so increase in tick and bug-borne diseases. We were just, Mama Bear was just talking about, cancer, talk about cancer that wasn't a traditional thing, diabetes. I can say the same thing as a Jamaican, someone who was born and raised in Jamaica. We saw the minute the IMF, and this is nothing to do with climate. IMF destabilized our economy and required that we import goods, that you see the incursion of diseases like diabetes and cancer and so on. And it's the same thing for climate change, right? We're going to see the increase in tick bug-borne diseases. Moose populations are threatened by the extended stay of the ticks. Adirondack mountains could lose much of their ice and snow by the end of the century. Right. And we see that in the thawing of Lake Champlain. When you're crossing, the center of Lake Champlain is no longer thaw. The changing weather patterns affect the quality and quantity of the Adirondack Park waters. Warming temperatures change the park's ecosystems, threatens the survival of wildlife and plants, loss of. Oh, really? Geez, she just flashed me the 1 minute sign. Let me move it on to environmental justice, because this is all about decolonizing the space, girl. So here we go. So you asked the question of what do we need to do to create an environmentally just and equitable future for all? We need to start with redefining environmentalism and the environmentalist. Right? We need to attend to the histories of environmentalism and the idea that the big green companies need to start doing the internal work of equity before they can have the external lens to view our biodiversity as equally important as our cultural diversity. And this is what I'm here today. So I think I'm out of time, but we can continue. I just started in on that.
You still have 20 seconds if you would like to finish your thought. Please.
Thank you so much. So I wanted to read an environmental justice, a definition for environmental justice, because I think this is where we are today, especially in this crew. Environmental justice takes on racial, social, and economic root causes of disparities. Attention paid to race, gender, culture, and class is critical to ensuring that those who are hardest hit by pollution, our First Nations people, can access opportunities, participate in policy decision, and benefit from investments. In sum, environmental justice is the multicultural dimension of environmentalism. Yeah, so I'm going to end there with that, and then opportunities to pitch in on my decolonizing environmentalism idea.
Thank you very much for your response. I'm going to pass the word now to Elodie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elodie Link. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Jeannie Hutchins Youth Climate Coordinator at the Wild Center. And I'm calling from Saranac Lake, New York on Haudenosaunee Territory. My question is to everyone, and it is, how can we build a network of communities that work jointly towards the same goal of protecting and giving voices to our rivers and their surrounding communities? Okay, so we have 7 minutes for this question. So it would be great if you could all keep your responses relatively brief so that there's time for everybody to speak. And we'll start right back up with Nikki, Hylton-Patterson.
Could you go ahead and repeat the question, please? Thank you.
Of course. So the question is, how can we build a network of communities that work jointly towards the same goal of protecting and giving voices to our rivers and their surrounding communities?
Well, we have to start by building sustainable alliances that are built on environmental justice. We're equal access for different communities that have been disproportionately impacted by climate change is at the forefront, that those communities become actors and not acted upon. Right. So this is how we need to create these alliances. We need to respect, and we need to start unpacking what is environmentalism, what sites of knowledge are considered scientific. We need to understand the history. Yes. So in understanding, we need to build those sustainable alliances. That's the way we do it, by understanding and critically understanding the history of eugenics and racism that is embedded in environmentalism. Yeah. so that we can attend to relationships that are sustainable, that are empowering, that are affirming, and that center indigenous and quotidian practices as scientific and valuable knowledge that is equally important to sustaining and our ecological future.
Thank you so much. Now I'll pass the word to Saka Yver.
Yes, well, I think that training is what is required, training in the most bottom-up way possible. I think the communities, particular communities that find themselves sort of on the outskirts of this conversation, can be brought into spaces where there's a great deal of money. For example, as an artist, I am all about occupying arts infrastructural spaces and providing folks with training regarding how to find their voice, which by that I mean how to refuse a contemporary position, a particular contemporary position that seeks to destroy the world, how to identify an alternative or state their vision plainly and work towards it, how to negotiate with the dead. And by that, I mean really draw in the understanding that they are operating and walking with their ancestors and staying in a space that their ancestors have built. All ancestors, not just the humans. And then that they find a way to trust the living, which is find a way to really build stronger relationships from a space of conviviality, as some would say, one that sustains life-affirming practices, training.
Thank you. Now I'll pass the word to Abraham Francis.
When I think about sustainable partnership building, I think about self-care in ways that like community care is connected to self-care. So when I say that, what I'm talking about is we are so busy, we are so overwhelmed, there are so many requests going on at every single turn. And I think about how we are going to make sure that we are all healthy and able to keep fighting. I think about the ceremonies I use, I think about the tobacco I offer, I think about smudging, I think about the family. And heck, even just watching Netflix and hiding from the world, that you have to take these moments to pause and protect yourself and your energy, because you aren't useful if you're broken. You know, like I think that this idea of just constant work and constant fighting, and look, I fall into this all the time and I have to stop myself. And, you know, I suffer from depression, pretty intense depression and anxiety. So sometimes I don't even have a choice to stop. But that I have a community of people that will catch me, will care for me, and will fight for me. And that really at the core of that is building these meaningful relationships, that I'm not interested in transactional relationships or just these business relationships. It's that I want people that care about me and want to like know about my life. And so, you know, for me, I reject these colonial ideas of just like strict professionalism. And I'll open meetings with, how's your heart today? And if we only accomplish one thing in that meeting, it's okay. You know, sometimes I recognize that if the only thing I do is show up, that's okay. That I'm enough that day. And that was enough I could accomplish. Because you know what? The next day I may show up and may do amazing things. Because I think we can agree that on the common agenda of protecting the environment for future generations to be healthy, I don't think that it's some complicated mission to try to communicate to people. It's about deconstructing these capitalistic structures around us. Because imagine what we could do and we could accomplish if we were not worried about this mighty dollar to maintain and protect and care for our families. It's a struggle, but you know, I dream of a world, and I want to believe and dream that we will find something that, you know, this capitalistic society we live in will ultimately just not be able to sustain itself anymore, and that we'll hopefully achieve something different, this future that is just better for us and healthier. So I don't know, like, that's what I think about sustainable partnerships, or this like effort in protecting the rivers and all of the environment.
Thank you. Next, I'll pass the word to Mama Bear.
Oh, I get a chance to answer this question. I didn't know that. I'm going by my sheet, but the question was, how do we build networks of communities that work jointly toward the same goal of protecting and giving voice to our rivers and their surrounding communities? Wow, I think Gabe, ditto. He's so cute and he's so smart. He pretty packed that answer for me already. I guess, building communities is being open to possibility. What kind of possibilities can we create together? And I think that if we, continue to live the divide, then we never really know what is on the other side. So, as a mother of 6 children and 13 grandchildren, that's my accountability, that's my responsibility. And it scares the living daylights out of me to imagine what kind of world that I'm going to leave behind for them. So, and, the hearts of mothers are always on the ground because, we worry that way, and dads do too. And so when I think about this question, it's like we got to gather the like-minded people. We have to build a collective, and it can't be just, people here or there. It's got to be a tsunami of a collective that are like-minded people to come at this so strongly. But, us Indigenous people have been in the fight for so long. We get a little war weary, and, like Abe, I resign myself to Netflix here and there, but, the war rages on. And, I guess for me, it's living a life of being able to kiss the ground, but who's going to kiss it with me? Who's going to be able to kneel and beside me and not be fearful of the earth, but to kiss her and to appreciate her. And, sometimes I think we're far and few between, but this evening really opens up the dialogue of how many of us really are in the struggle to maintain this incredible, beautiful mother planet that we're on. And I'm greatly inspired by the young people tonight. And, you are so smart, AB and his Ivy Tower. I've been there, but, as we go forward and as we continue to stare at the inheritance that was given to us and to the one that time is up. Good golly, and let you know something about Mama Bear. You never cut Mama Bear off, but, I know my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you. Now I will pass the word to Anusha Pahar.
Wait, did I just get unmuted?
I'm sorry. Hi, I'm Anusha, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm calling from Saranac Lake, New York, and I'm a freshman at Saranac Lake High School, and I have a question for Monty Aguirre. Considering the economic, social, and environmental impacts of dams, how can we find alternatives that allow for free-flowing rivers while respecting the rights of the human and non-human communities that have adapted to the status quo?
Thank you so much. Again, it's so great to be here, and I must say this conversation that we're having here today, it is really very different from the conversation that I have out there in the world, and it feels so comforting, even though we're dealing with very difficult questions, and we don't always have the answer like straightforward, But, actually, I want to go back to the last question because I think I do have something to say about it. And I feel like in building that community, and this relates to your question now, and I feel that creating a safe, respectful space to discuss the questions that you just posed before with those around you and your community, it's really important, starting with those people that are sympathetic, and I'm saying all this because this is how I have to do when I go out there in the world. And most of the territory that I cover is Latin America. And so you already identified the goal, which is to protect and give voices to our rivers and their surrounding communities. And that's already a big step. It's going in the right direction. You need to know what your rights are. What are the rights of the river? Then you become and develop strategies with those community members. Are they legal strategies? Are they communications? And within communications, how do you give voice to the river? By poetry, by science, and so much more. By speaking about the river, you are the guardian, the spokesperson for the river. Then you reach out to others, advocacy, and does it involve lobbying? You develop methodologies then for gathering. Many of your students, you develop strategies. Setting up your goal, your strategies, developing up your methodologies for gathering information, preferably in a participatory manner. Mapping is so important, so good. A lot of information comes into place. And then after that, just so many more activities. You organize town meetings, dinner parties, barbecues, sport events, whatever. It seems right. And then in terms of dams, and international rivers, we are a 36-year-old organization. So, and we've known from the beginning how damaging dams are, and we knew something, right? And then we started to learn even more about it, and then how to maintain the free flow of rivers. I must say that after, I don't like this word, but fighting dams, I don't like the word fighting, but help me out with new words. But as we sort of confronted these really damaging projects on rivers and for communities, in my case, we were able to stop dams many times, but they would come back again, like ghosts, flying, like drones, come back again with a different name, perhaps in a slightly different location, perhaps with different technical, specs or whatever. And so what I realized is that we needed to go and set up, develop new systems for protecting rivers. I like to say permanent. I like to say forever. Some people don't think that way, but in my way of thinking, that's how it has to be, especially after what you all have said about in terms of protecting nature and our lives, right? And I've looked at the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, here from the United States. And if some of you might not know about it, but I think that it's a way to start. It's a way to start by designating rivers, sections of rivers, a whole river, headwaters, whatever it is, and looking at what the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act has to say. And that effort is going on throughout the United States. Perhaps the act actually is 52 years old, but it's right now I feel like there's a very concentrated, focused effort to protect rivers through that act. So a lot of what you're saying, a lot of the knowledge that you carry with you have the knowledge as to why you need to protect the river. Those statements are really important to substantiate why the river needs to be protected. And I must say, like, that is also true for rights of rivers. Rights of rivers, we're talking about judicial, right? When we're talking about the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, for example, we're talking about the legislative. So we make those differences just because this is the system that where we are at, right? But the knowledge of original peoples is really important for both. Customary law is really important for both. So I forgot, I was supposed to talk about dams, but in terms of alternatives, I think most of us already know that we do have, every time more and more it's becoming known and shown how these alternatives, like especially solar and wind, are more appropriate, right? We've already seen the social cost, environmental and economic. We've already seen that. It feels like that's old language, so that we need to, evolve. But I feel that having either laws or policies and within that a system for permanent river protection, it's really important. And actually, that's one of the things that we're doing in many other countries, and very inspired by the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. Thank you.
Thank you so much for answering the question. Now I'll pass the floor to Alexandro.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alessandro Marangelli. I come from Italy, but I study at St. Lawrence University. I use he, they pronouns. And my question is for Saka Iber, and you will have 5 minutes to answer. And the question is, why should agroecology and regenerative agricultural practices become a right of nature?
Alessandro, I'd like to ask you a question because I did not fully understand this question when I received it. Are you asking me if agroecology or regenerative agricultural practice should become a right of nature, or they should be protected under rights of nature?
I believe that's your perspective.
Absolutely cool. So I liked the question, although I didn't understand it. I like the question because I think it's important to recognize that when we refer to agroecological practice, we're actually referring to, it's a way to articulate that our activity, our relating, even for the desire of production, is not something removed from nature. So it's really important to understand our raising of children in a way to be a growing of life that will have a role and make a contribution to an ecology or an ecosystem. I like the idea of regenerative practices becoming a right of nature. But I think I like it only if I'm not saying RIGHT of nature and saying RITE. When I say RITE, and I understand that it is significant for me to bring my child out into the backyard to grow things, healthy things. It is significant for us to harvest those things, bring them into the house and prepare a meal. It is significant for us to take and partake in millennia old practice of cooking, and we are producing something really nourishing. And then it is important that it's significant that we take that into our bodies. And when we hold it in our bodies and it offers us the love that it has given us, that it is lived for, and we hold that in us, then we have a choice to do something that continues that flow of love, or a choice to do something that disrupts that choice, that flow of love. So if agroecology and regenerative practice is something that removes obstacles when it comes to the flow of love and the planet, not a particular nation state, then that's something that should absolutely be, we should amass many armies to protect, not with violence, but with love.
Thank you very much. And if there is anyone else with insights or opinions regarding this question, you're more than welcome to jump in the conversation, and I will repeat the question for everyone, and is, why should agroecology and regenerative agricultural practices become a right of nature?
I just want to say one thing is that because I've heard you, a few of you say question rights, and I understand, and I do too. But the important thing is that we're dealing. I mean, like I said at the beginning, you know, if we're already in a system of being, it's not even believing, it's a being who we are, where nature, when we know we are a part of nature, that's one thing, but where people feel dissociated from nature. And I actually have lived that in my own lifetime, where I grew up and there was no difference. I even, you know, taught at school even, you know, we humans were a part of the animal kingdom. And then more recently, a couple of years ago, before COVID, I was in Colombia and asking a child about it. And the child said, no, we're different. We are not, you know, from the animal kingdom. So then I saw so clearly that that dissociation, it's already somehow embedded. Well, I wouldn't say embedded, but it's already in the discourse. You know, it's already in the design of the system that is being imposed, that works to make, you know, the economic system, not economic, but more the capitalism continue and exist. Sorry, okay, let's leave somebody else an opportunity to speak. Thank you.
If anyone else, first, thank you so much, Monty and Saka. And if anyone else has another insight, we have 1 minute left. Otherwise, we can move on to the next question.
I'm not an expert in those fields, but I'm just gonna say, like, it just sounds like being a good relative, you know, with the world around you. Like that's just what I think about when I'm thinking about this regenerative relationship. It's about following the cycle of life, you know, life, death, birth, all of these pieces, and being able to be a good relative. So that's all I can think about when it comes to that. But like, again, agriculture, not necessarily my thing.
Okay, thank you so much. And because our time is up, I will pass the word to Lorna. Thank you again, everyone, so much.
I can't turn on my video, but I'm here. My name is Lorna Thomas, Lorna Mae Thomas. I'm Bear Clan from Akwesasne, and I'm part of the Mohawk Nation. I'm calling in from Kawahnogeh, or Cornwall Island, Akwesasne. And I work at the Native North American Traveling College as a cultural educator and museum tech. And I've been fortunate enough to be working with this committee for a while now. And I think all the questions and answers so far have been really informative and amazing. So my question is for Wagelagaste, and it is, how do you recommend we indigenize the rights of nature? And we have 5 minutes for this question, but if there is time remaining, we will hear from other members of the panel.
Hey, Gwesego,
My Mohawk name is Ganokwahawi, which is probably how you know me, but my English name is May.
Yeah. Gwesego, holy. Yeah, I didn't know it was one of my homies that was gonna ask on this question because, you know, we really try and use our Kaniatarowanénhne names, and I worked with this young beautiful lady in her coming of age ceremony in a rites of passage that we call Ohologo, which is under the husk. And so as conductor of that ceremony, I get to know these young people, and then years later I get the opportunity to see their evolution and their maturity, and here she is, you know, asking me this really important question. So, you know, I think that's the regenerative force of community, is that when you pour love into it, it's going to grow, and it's going to be amazing. And you know, it creates hope, and it creates inspiration. But in reflecting on this question, there's been a lot of good questions tonight, and you know, it's a little difficult for me because I'm a first a first language speaker. I was born into a family that only spoke Mohawk. I didn't know what English was, and then I went to Indian day school. So my mind works different than the academy. But in addressing this question, how do we indigenize? I think that was the question: how we indigenize the rights of nature. And there's the only place I can springboard from in answering that question is living and loving what I know. And it's such a different worldview, being Haudenosaunee, being on Haudenosaunee land, raised in our Kaniatarawanénhne language, and living off the land as a child, and then watching in the last 50 years this complete evolution of our community go from self-sustainability to convenience and reliability on supermarkets, and turn into the almighty dollar as our only God. It's changed. It's changed a lot of the thinking and the way. But I dream often of the indigeneity of who we are, and the word gets used a lot in a settler colonial space to talk about decolonization. And for me, in order to decolonize, we have to admit that we're colonized. And good Lord, I'll never admit that I was colonized, because I still speak my language and I still know my ceremonies, and I can still look up to the moon and know her name just as my ancestors did. I can greet the morning sun and know what his name is, just like Dave laid it out in our opening address. We still have a way about us that's different and unique, and it's all interwoven with a relationship founded on kinship and how we speak to one another. And when you talk to the sun as your brother, or the grandmother as your moon, or the earth as your or as your grandma, or the earth as your mother, that's a relationship. Or when you talk to the four-leggeds as your brothers, that's how we are. I'm Bear Clan, and there are certain ways that you got to carry yourself when you're a bear, but even more so when you're the mama bear. So it's just all encompassing. And in order to bring to indigenize a nation, or to bring indigenation to a people that is so disconnected from itself, the only way you can do it is to ritualize it. And for me, you got to bring ceremony. You have to bring ritual. Just the way that Anukwahawee, during her puberty, right? We had to return her to the breast of our mother and sit her there in states of deprivation, no food, no water, no human contact, up to 4 days. And she had to know what it was like to go without water so that she could understand thirst. She had to go without food so she can know what hunger is like. So, in a controlled, guided, loving environment, we on purpose created a state of deprivation for her. And so when you remove from the human being those basic rights of water, food, love, they're going to think twice about their position in the world. And it is our hope that if we pour enough love into our societies and our communities, that the only reason why people hate is because they're not loved. And so I hear a lot of talk tonight about love, and yes, there's another word that I also like to use is reason. We have to greatly rely upon our intellect and our ability to reason people to their sensical place in the world. And as the mama bear, I'm like, use your brilliance to find your way to happiness and to love and to caring for one another, and to hold ourselves in a place of perpetual gratitude and kindness, just like AB said. And you know, when you can do those simple things, you know, you begin to re-indigenize. And I believe everybody is indigenous from an original place on this land, and our creation story tells us that. And so when we refer back to our creation story and the different epochs in time that created the culture by which we live today, and the ones that we hold very close and dear, that's indigeneity, that's indigenizing. And so if we can change the narrative, let's stray away from word of decolonization, but to indigenate. And whether you're indigenous or not, it doesn't matter. You know, you come from a long legacy of people that maybe crossed the salt water or have arrived here for several generations. And you came also from a culture in a river, on a mountain, in a land, someplace else on this Mother Earth. So bring that with you and celebrate it fully here. And, you know, we spend so much time trying to fit into this, would you call it a capital world? So for me, you know, I think there's more beauty in in our differences to be celebrated and to bring understanding. So the indigeneity belongs to us all. And, you know, there's so many committees I'm on, and, you know, I'm always trying to present the Ogunhue or the native worldview. But the true testament of it all is that despite the colonial assault and the genocide that existed here, which we're still trying to clean up from and heal from, that the resiliency shows itself and is a testimony that we're still here. And to me, that's the privilege the world gets to witness, is that, you know, because we knew how to live off the land, to live with our Earth Mother, and to hold close that kinship and relationship, she helped us continue to live, and she will continue to do that. But, you know, there's stories in our culture that says if we forget her, she will pull back. And so, you know, when Dave did the opening, he talked about the thunder beings. That was really big, because now, just on the news this morning, there's all kinds of hurricanes being unleashed in a time when it's not even hurricane season yet. So, you know, that's Mother Nature unleashing her wrath. But I still think that Indigenous people are kind of like the earth whisperers, and they can calm her. But, you know, it's going to take the Indigenous woman and the Indigenous ways of knowing in order to do that. But we do have to be gentle, but we cannot be afraid. We cannot be afraid. And we have to be forever believing. And, you know, these people like Elon Musk, of course, I'm just going off on any tangent here, you know, who's building these spaceships to leave this earth when, you know, like, and find life somewhere else, you know. Well, what a sad day it will be when he finds out that you can't make any life anywhere else the way that we have it here. So anyways, you know, I can just theorize all day, and perhaps maybe somebody in a group can add a little bit more to this question of indigenizing the land. But, you know, at the end of the day, ritualize it. And the simplicity of it is just to say, thank you, Mother Earth. Thank you, Brother Sun. And thank you, Grandma Moon. Yawa.
Awesome. Yawa. So unfortunately, my camera won't turn on, so I couldn't give you the 1 minute mark or the 5 minute mark. So I'm going to just pass the word to Elodie Link.
Everyone. My name is Elodie Link. I use she, her pronouns. The question that I have now is for Abraham Francis. How do you navigate working within this colonized, patriarchal, and racist world? And what would be a good way for you to move forward with the concept of the rights of nature? We have 5 minutes for this question, but if there is time remaining, we can wait and hear from other members of the panel.
Well, you know, working in the world that we work in is like extremely violent at times. And I'm just grateful that I get to work in my community, surrounded by my community and my people. Because I feel like I have agency and support like I've never had anywhere else, and I will never have anywhere else. It's the only place like I'm not a minority, and people see me and they recognize me and they love me and care for me. But like thinking about the different spaces I have to work in, I just occupy as my unapologetic self. You know, as a queer Indigenous scientist, as you know, as me, you know, for me, like a piece of occupying space is wearing my wonderful earrings that ignite conversations with folks that I may not have had any discussion with before, that they start a conversation, they create a memory, that I'm the person with the earrings. And I think it like sometimes opens these really interesting doors. But you know, I often go back to Leanne Simpson's work, and she talks about critical Anishinaabeg thought and theory and practice. And when I think about what she like this really important quote to me, which was that, you know, people will see her work not as critical and thoughtful, or, you know, won't take her work serious. They'll see it as like soft fiction or whatever, like little prose on the world. But, you know, what she really like pushed forward for me was she's like, I'm not going to make my work palatable to, I will not like, she was like, I won't give that argument or that like perspective any space in my mind and in my body. I refuse to center whiteness, had the heteropatriarchal society around me in my work. Instead, I prefer to center my people and our knowledge and our language and who we are and what we do. And so I often go back to that. So sometimes I'll do the opening for folks and I'll just say it in our language. I won't translate. I won't explain. You know, it depends on where I'm at that day. I don't owe an explanation to people. I don't owe researchers or the ivory tower at that any explanation. I don't owe them research. I don't owe them any knowledge. The only people that I owe any work to is my own community of people. So for me, working in this like space, working in these places is just about taking up as much space as possible. And I know it sounds weird to say that, but like these are spaces and tables that like I could have never imagined sitting at, because I'm just a dirty res kid from Saint. And I never thought in a million years I would be doing what I'm doing, or people would even be listening to like what I have to think about these things and actually find significance in them. But what I know is someone has to speak up. Someone has to say something, because sitting there quiet and passively is just you accepting what is being said about you. But also, like, you know, again, not every space deserves you. If it's too toxic for me, I'm not going to occupy space there. And I make that decision about what's good for my spirit and what's good for me. Not everybody, you know, not everybody's worth my time. And I'm not going to like, you know, extend myself. Some people I will extend myself for, like Mama Bear, like this community here. But for like some folks, I will reel it in and I'll just be like, it's not worth my time. So for me, it's about being me, my unapologetic self, the person that was raised in this community, that was shaped by the people around me. And that's what I'm appreciative of. And so just being me. And I guess that's a weird way to put it, but like, yeah. So that's what I have to offer to that.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to share their thoughts?
I'd like to say something quickly, and it's in terms of the rights of rivers. And, you know, the Innu and the Cree actually worked on a rights of rivers case, as well as the municipality. This is in Canada, and that was accepted or the judgment was positive. I think actually didn't go through court, but and so you might want to have the Innu and Cree talk to you about what they went through. When I went visit up there, God, and to me it was like the Arctic coming to me. I'm a tropical person. I come from the tropics, and being up there was just so magical. The light was so different. The people, the light, amazing. But in any case, I think it would be interesting for some of you to speak with communities up there to see how they went about it. What did they think about it? What was the reasoning behind it? Because it's a conjugation of navigating between, original people's way of thinking and cosmovision and so forth, and navigating in this other world. And let's not even define it right now, And so that's how it happens. And that's why rights has that, why we're using rights, because it's something that that has meaning in this other world to some degree. Over. Thank you.
I want to say something real quick. To this question about patriarchy and a racist world, I guess in the simplicity of it all, is that we have to recognize it, that we do live under patriarchal paternal rule. And, the ladies that I work with here, we started to use this word rematriation. And for me, rematriation, if you look it up in a dictionary, there is no definition for it. It'll take you to repatriation. So, the way that the world thinks, it's very male centered. And so we started this rematriation magazine, and we started to rematriate. And the basic definition for rematriation is just returning the sacred to the mother. And all the things that are sacred on the earth need to go back to her, which is our own lives, our own flesh and blood, our bones. We come into this world by her, and we will leave by her. So for me, the way to get around that is to make the mother important again in our daily lives. And that's all I'd like to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to pass the word to Joe Murphy from Humanities New York, who helped make this event possible.
Thanks, Elodie. It's great to be here. Again, my name is Joe Murphy, and I'm joining you all from Asbury Park, New Jersey. I use he, him pronouns, and as Elodie just mentioned, I'm associated with Humanities New York, the NEH affiliate in New York State. This has been a wonderful conversation. It's great to learn so much, and frankly, just to unlearn much of what I thought I knew. And in that spirit, I wanted to return to Monty's comment much earlier in the program about putting on our philosophy caps and talking about the question of rights. But my question is about the legal system as such. So where philosophy kind of meets practice. And the question is about the reliability, if you will, and the utility of courts in this context. So the question is as follows. The American legal system has a long history of facilitating dispossession and environmental degradation vis-a-vis the protection of quote unquote rights enjoyed by corporate and oligarchic interests. And yet the same history shows that the courts have, at least in what we could call the human sphere, now and again redeemed the rights of minority communities, protecting their interests against threats posed by democratic majorities here in the United States. So here's the question itself. In envisioning a rights of nature regime implemented by the courts, are we seeking to use existing law in order to kind of insulate nature, if you will, from the ravages of American democracy? Or are we hoping to democratize the courts themselves by just reinventing the very definition of legal personhood? And I know that, Saka had, issues about rights and versus rights, that distinction. So maybe it's a good place to start with Saka Hiver on this question. And just a reminder that we do have 7 minutes for this question. So it'd be great if, as always, folks could keep their responses brief so there's time for everyone to speak. So over to you, Saka, please.
Thank you. So I think that we're hoping to democratize the courts. To be honest with you, I don't believe in democracy, or at least not as it's material here in the United States. Representative democracy is not true democracy. If you aren't allowing for conflict, the recognition that I, as a being, have a different experience here on this patch of the earth than you sitting there on that patch of the earth, then we aren't getting anywhere. And we have to understand that in order to be able to have a real conversation. I think that in democratizing the courts, we are trying to, one, get courts and settler legal mentalities to understand two things. One, that the legal system and the idea of legal personhood that currently reigns supreme comes from one group of humans who interacted with one group of humans from a particular ecosystem, a particular climate, a particular series of relations, who then collided in a way, sometimes violently, sometimes okay, but mostly violently, with other humans who come from a different ecosystem with different relations. And in order to advance democracy, that difference has to be understood and woven in.
Thanks, Saka. And since Abraham mentioned earlier in the program that there are many strategies on the table, some better than others, I thought maybe we could go to Abraham to talk about this particular question as a strategy. Abraham?
Well, kind of like building off of what was just said here, like I don't believe in the legal system at all. Hell, I don't even believe in like academia. I don't believe in the current systems as they exist. I think like the idea that we can indigenize them or that we can do something to change them, like they're built on a flawed foundation. And, I just kind of go back to like Audre Lorde's approach that like, we can't deconstruct the master's home with the master's tools. I think it really resounds truly for me. And so like I've really been contemplating that because I feel like I work in these systems anyways, and I use the tools available to push back against them, even though I don't believe in them. And it feels like to me like I'm just, I don't know, I feel like a sellout. But like again, it's like me renegotiating with myself, because a lot of this work I do is about like harm reduction. Because if we don't speak up, we don't do something, we don't use these tools, then people die. Like we have to remind ourselves, like people are dying because of these messed up systems regularly. Like if we're not engaged in policy making, the policies that are getting written for us are killing our people. The research that is getting done is flawed and not answering our questions, and people die because of that. Like that's what I think about, and I'm not going to find justice in this system. My people have been consistently put down by this. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Like I just feel like I live in a world of conflicts in my brain, and I guess like there's this idea like conflict produces innovation or whatever. But I'm really sick of like being constantly challenged, or like I'm supposed to be celebrated for how well I can take a punch. Like I want to be celebrated for how like soft and kindly I can live my life, and love the people around me. Like I don't know. It's like, like we're strong, resilient, and indigenous people, but like, come on, I just want to be like soft and full of jelly. Like, I'm just getting really tired of that. I'm going to keep doing it because that's what we have to do. But like, damn, like, can the world chill out for a minute to like, let me like enjoy myself and enjoy my family and yeah, like I know that may have like not really kind of like touched on your question really well or whatever, and more of like a random jumble of thoughts coming out, but it really has been something that I've just constantly thought about, and I've arrived here where I am today on it. So yeah, well.
Thanks, Abraham. Beautifully said, as ever. We've not heard from Nikki in a while, so I wanted to give Nikki the priority for the floor. Nikki, any response? No pressure. Otherwise, the floor is open. We have about just under 3 minutes to chat about this question.
If I may, I just wanted to also add that if we're seeking to use existing law to insulate nature from the ravages of American democracy, then we're not doing anything different. That's effectively what conservation has been, not community conservation necessarily, but that's effectively what settler conservation has been. And that just is not working, if you haven't noticed, folks.
Thus the need, Saka, to revolutionize the very definition of legal personhood.
Completely ignore and recognize that the settler law is illegitimate, that you have millennia of land relations to build upon, and that this recent, very recent, violent transgression has got to end.
Very good, very good. Any others, Mama Bear?
I couldn't, I'm sorry, my mic wasn't working. So I started talking and then I realized that I wasn't being heard. But I think we're operationalizing a new lexicon in this moment. And so, Abram, even though you are marrying the role that you have now with the complexity of being you and not wanting to be resilient. This is how I feel sometimes. I'm tired of being resilient. I'm tired of being strong. I want to be I want to be more personable and be able to rest. I want to be able to rest and not have to be resilient. But when I'm thinking about democratizing the courts by reinventing the very definition of legal personhood, yeah, I know I've got 1 minute, but I haven't talked in a while. So I'm gonna keep going. So yeah. So thinking about that on the day when a Black woman is being grilled to be installed to the Supreme Court as a Black woman, I'm thinking, what does that mean for me? If Ketanji Brown Jackson is just working within the system to reproduce the system that has oppressed her, right? What does that mean? And so that's what I'm trying to grapple with right now. If it's useful for us to deploy the current laws that were not erected with us in mind. And I'm saying us, the voices and the bodies and the spirits on the margins. How useful is that then to embed legal personhood, give them the power to embed legal personhood when Ketanji Brown Jackson, the Black race only gained legal personhood after much struggle and warfare, right? So this is how I'm sitting with this now, and I'm challenged with that.
Thanks so much, Nikki, and to all of our respondents on that particular question. Once again, this has been a wonderful thing to participate in, learning so much. And I'd like to pass the word at this point to Jenna and Anusha. Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm Jenna. I'm asking this question with my friend Anusha here. What advice do you have for young people that are motivated to make change but worried about the systems or people working against these types of changes? And Anusha?
How can we support their drive for advocacy in the face of so much adversity? We have 5 minutes for this question, so it would be amazing if we could keep your responses brief so that there's time for everyone to speak. We will start with Abraham.
Oh my gosh, that was a big question. It was said so fast, but how do we support others in light of all of this madness? I mean, just care for each other in like a kind, supportive way. Use consent, prior informed consent, free prior informed consent. I'm just using buzzwords at this point, but like, I just think about like building family and caring for your family in a really healthy, holistic way. I think of my traditional teachings that help me, guide me in that like skana gostasla gadi uhlio is a way to be in good relationship with yourself, with the world around you, your family, and all of these things. That peace, power, and a good mind are these 3 foundational principles of a great law that build our nation, but can build up yourself and build up those around you. So oftentimes I go back to the teachings of my people, and I try to share that with folks that, you know, about grief. I try to share people about joy, try to show my joy. I try to celebrate joy. I don't know. A lot of it goes back to like just taking care of each other. And for me, what that is like this embodiment of the grief process in my community. When somebody passes away, we show up for them. We make sandwiches. We hold them as they cry. And so that's what I think about supporting the people around us and supporting those as we like resist these systems. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to pass the word to Mama Bear.
The way that I feel that we can encourage youth is to show up. And I've been joined by my grandchildren, so I'm not going to stay on long, but you know, it's to bring our children into nature, into the rivers, and you know, law is founded on precedence. Earth is older than us, and she has every right to be in her full persona, and we need to honor that because my grandkids need some place to play. Yeah.
Thank you. I gotta say, I love the voices in the background. I'm gonna pass the word to Monte Aguirre.
Thank you. Quickly, I feel like we all have that knowledge inside of us. You have that knowledge inside of you. So being one with it, it's very important, and believe that you do. We have that knowledge inside of us because we're part of nature. We're part of the solution. Just that. Thank you.
Thank you, Monty. I'm going to pass the word to Nikki Hylton-Patterson.
Find your people. That's the first thing I have to say. Find your people, because you will need sustenance. You will need support. You will need, when you fall, when you meet upon obstacles, you're going to need that base. Find your people. And I go back to making significant alliances across differences. Find your people, find ways to connect. And there are lots of resources out there that can keep you encouraged and stable. Look at the Talking Wings. This is a powerful, powerful movement of young people. You're doing it. You're already doing it. And we are literally sitting at your feet, you know, like the elders now. So yeah, find your people.
Thank you. I'm going to pass the word to Saka Yver.
As a father, I also agree with Mama Bear. I think it's really important to recognize that we need to bring children into nature, into the environment, and ensure that they have a place to play and that their children have a place to play and their friends. And I think that the way to do that is through defense. And I say it in a particular way because it's not about violence, it's about love. So build shields. Shields do two things. They provide shelter for whatever is behind a shield. And as a shield, they devastate the intention of anything that seeks to disrupt what is behind the shield. So build shields.
Thank you, everybody. I'm going to pass the word to Blake and Simpson.
So what a night. Learning so much from all of you. Nyaha, thank you. I know it's gotten very late. I know a lot of you are still hanging in there and you all want to rest, prepare for the week ahead. But just to end the night, we had lots of amazing questions from the audience. We can't really ask them all because we want to respect everybody's time. We've had everything from people commenting on what they see as what should happen in this area for the rights of nature. We've had people mentioning specifically, just diving in here to read the question. So the state representative Patrick Burke recently introduced legislation that would grant the Great Lake Bill of Rights. which would grant the Great Lakes Bill of Rights and offering possibilities to collaborate with you all. But to summarize all of these questions into one last final remark for the night, it would be, what do you all, it can be one or two words, what do you all want to see? What do you all want to see in the future after this conversation ends? What dreams you have for the future of this region, or in the case of Monte Aguirre, for the future in general? And I'm going to start with Mama Bear. What dreams do you have for this region?
That I can take in a deep breath and exhale and know that I'll continue to live. Thank you.
Nioba, thank you. Thank you. Nikki, what dreams do you have?
Well, for this region, I want to see more Black, Indigenous, and other people of color become more invested in the region in terms of environmental justice, and what Mama Bear calls indigenizing the ways we think about the environment. That's what I want to see.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Saka.
For this region, I would like to see all the dams removed and people find a way to like move with the water and find higher ground when you need to and get out its way when it needs to go.
Apologize. Thank you so much, Saka. Monty, your dreams.
My dreams for the region, and I'm thinking we're talking about where you are at. And I must say, when I first came to the United States, actually in the place where I lived, there was Akwesasne Notes. We would get the newspaper. So somehow we're connecting, and I love it. I want peace. I want peace in that region with everything. You know, you're asking me for a dream, and that's the dream, and I think it'll happen. You know, I think it will happen. And I want beauty to still stand there, as I know is there. I want all these beautiful young people to just have a good life, continue to, you know, live a good life. Yeah, but peace, just well-being, you know, Pachamama, as we say, you know, it's that's what I wish for your region, free-flowing rivers. I'm into removing dams too. So for the fish to go where they need to go. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monty. Abe, you get to close up the night.
I want babies. I want children. I want to raise a generation that is not encumbered by intergenerational trauma, that gets to be their unapologetic self and love them for every piece and celebrate that about themselves, that know their language, that know their culture, that know their roles and responsibility to creation around them, that are safe and secure and healthy. Like, that's what I want. Just want these brown faces to like inspire me and just remind me that this is all worth it in the end, you know, that like I get to sit there and watch them grow up and watch their, you know, grandkids grow up. Like, you know, that's for me. That's what I want. I want babies.
Again, Nyawa, thank you. We reached the end of the night. Those of you who've came with us the whole way, this has been a real adventure. Also want to thank the amazing interpreters. We've got lots of comments for you all, saying that you all were just stellar. And of course, for the questions, the answers, now it is time for all of the moderators. Please, if you can come on screen so we can thank all of you together. Everyone who helped moderate this event tonight. You all did such a beautiful, amazing job making this conversation happen, crafting the questions. And again, this would not have been possible without the panelists, the people who shared their knowledge with us tonight. Knowledge which is a seed that was planted, and hopefully beautiful, amazing, amazing futures will grow from this conversation. And now, without further ado, it is time to close out this event. So Devarquet, the word is yours.
Wow. I'm amazed and inspired at all the things that were said today. It gives me a lot of hope and inspiration, and for the youth, that there's going to be a lot of hope for your future. So, we know this isn't going to end. We know there's a lot of work to be done, and we know we need to work together and move forward in the achieving the rights of nature. And so we will do a close this section of it, but we know it's going to continue into the future. So when we close, we do the same way we open, except that we add that those that are traveling, we ask the 4 messengers to guide you back safely to your home with your friends and loved ones. So, Gakwa sawanta hunsiyo chisne kaliwesa na hodo galo tako ogawana hesto. Agwego aska no mama nuni na gwana galo dano de telados na ongweso agwego skana gohagachi tango chwana na kata honjanga de wandalo tono tones wana gala. Agwego aska no mama nuni na gwana galo dano de telados na yikinishto honja kakat kawahage on hodo so skana a de watono sake tono tones wana gala. Agwego aska no mama nuni na gwana galo dano de telados na Tosla G Sego Kit Yowis Neka go Etwax Nana, they were doing kayaks at Tono Tonis one the Gula. A Grego Oscar no Mama Nuni, Guanagula Dano de Teladas, Neka he saw on a Dono Nequa Takua Kuana, Gun Destin House and all the Tono Tonis one the Gula. A Grego Oscar no Mama Nuni, Guanagula Dano de Teladas, Ne Undet So G Sego, Kit Yowis Ne, and no, Oga get Kakwa Dono, no. Dano Oga ge anungo de was the Tono Tones one gola. The Telatos ne onega so you say go want to young go to Moscow than Oscar gave on a head guy named Hunjage Askachi on a mama nuni ne going to go down the day Telatos ne onega so Tono Tones one gola. A great Oscar no mama nuni ne going to go down the day Telatos ne got your son ne what got to get a house or the dosa they would don't get on a god is gonna go on the west that on a day Telatos ne got your son Tono Tones one gola. The Telatos ne anongo so G Sego Yonki at the go house no young Guanamakto Askachi on a mama nuni ne Guanagala down the Telatos ne anongo so Tono Tones one gola. The Telatos ne Gotila G Sego Yonki at the go house no they were don't Gagston and no they were wistos Askachi on a mama nuni ne Guanagala down the Telatos ne Contilio, Tono Tonis one, Gula. A Grego Oscar, Wawa, Nuni, Guanagala, Dano de Teladas, ne overlet so a G Sego, and not the hell on a hold of Saganya Hansan, and some Guatiso at Tono Tonis one, Gula. The Teladas now G Dogo, G Sego, you got Tonda Galanios like the Howie down and Equa Takuakuano, Aquas and Hosanoda, on a garden, Sagalano, Hondalano, Don Escana, Agayonda, Yohonja, that Tono Tunis, one Gula. A Grego Oscar, Wawa, Nuni, Guanagula, Dono de Teladas, Ne Gayeli, Negaliwaga, G Sego, and not on a hold of Saganya Hansan, and Saguatisa, a Tono Tunis, one Gula. The Teladas ne you kiso to go on Lativelas, Latinaka Howis net Sega to Neot, yeah, Lahaka on the hold of Sakanya Hasana, Saga Tisa, et Tono Tunis one Gola. The Teladas ne, they were Catus ne Calaqua, the Hotwateto, Latirihato, go to Honjaka, Casa Stutzla, only there's some Guavi, a Grego Ascanama, Nuni, Guanagola, and the Teladas, and some Guagia. Connect Calaqua Tono Tunis one Gola. Let you know ne chi nunji de wayale ne aska chi on wama nuni ne gwana golotano de talados ne asatana so yatikas ke kasalakas na yuki sata asatana kalako etono tonis wana gola agrego aska no mama nuni ne gwana golotano de talados ne ochisto kwaso ne wa ne lona tlole ne yagwa sosola ne Lona Wayosta Ono, Yosta Tata, Junimoga Hesatono, Toniswana Gala. Agrego Askanama Nuni, Guanago down the Taladas, Ne, Gaeli Neon Guetake, Ne Wahe, Ne Lona de Lihunda, Oyokiata Nana, Ne Ongwaso Atono, Toniswana Gala. Agrego Askanama Nuni, Guanagola. Galenios ontewasta tochitulatus de songuetis neo yeleste son quale tono tones one gola ono ya heto en yo he wagale wa hodo jino hodo wade wana tonyo ayama skokot ne ga elene guete ge ne son guetis sagale hondo ne azete ne golala ne skana a ezoe jino undize wat tono tones one ga daneto. Everybody.
Thank you, Niewa. Have a beautiful night, everyone.
Thank you.
Onegi.
Onegi wahi.
Thank you.